Hey guys, welcome back to the 44th episode of the Huggy Poker Vlog. 2 days ago, we took our first shot at 5-10 no limit, and yesterday we came back for an even bigger win. Well, get ready because we are about to score our biggest win at these stakes yet. We're mostly folding for the first 15 minutes, seeing a couple flops, but not catching anything. Finally, we pick up our first big hand. The +2 player raises to 30, and it folds around to us in the small blind, where we look down at 2 black aces. This is an easy 3-bet, and I bump it up to 110. The big blind folds, and the original raiser comes over the top, making it $340. Well, that makes our decision pretty easy.
All in?
Oh, once or twice?
I always do once.
Okay. Yeah.
If I lose, I lose, yeah.
I knew what he had.
Well, yeah, I had.
Just once, yeah.
I'll
Oh,
swap
this is a
with
big
you.
bet.
Oh yeah.
Five or man?
Huh?
Man?
We just do once, yeah. Yeah, it's cooler.
Yeah.
And just like that, we get a full double up just 15 minutes into our session. 5 hands later, we've got ace-jack offsuit in the +1 position. The first player folds, and I raise to 30. The player behind us 3-bets to 100, and it folds back to us. I put in the chips to call, and we're heads up to the flop. We don't really get any help as it comes down 8-10-4 rainbow. I check to our opponent, and he c-bets for 70. We're not beating much at this point, and there's nothing really to do here other than fold. 10 minutes later, we've got 8-6 suited in the hijack. Action folds to us, and I raise to 30. Just the big blind calls, so we're heads up. The flop is 10-3-9 with 2 clubs, giving us a gut shot. The big blind checks, and I put out a small c-bet for $30. He calls, and we both see the king of clubs on the turn. This card is better for our range than it is his, but the front door flush comes in, and I don't expect we're going to get folds here if he's holding a club in his hand at this point. With that, I just check back. The river brings the jack of hearts. Any queen makes a straight now. Our opponent checks again, and I feel like we could potentially steal here with a bet on this scary board. I put out a small bet of $40 that should hopefully look like value, and we get a fold. 5 hands later, we've got ace-9 suited. The under the gun player raises to 30, there's 1 call, and we make the call from the small blind. The big blind calls as well, and the 4 of us take a flop. It comes down jack-10 queen with 2 spades, so wrong color board, but we've got an open-ended straight draw. I go ahead and check, and somehow it manages to check all the way around. The turn's a brick when it brings the deuce of clubs. Action checks around again, and we get a pretty good river when we see the king of spades giving us Broadway. I lead small for $30, and just the under the gun player calls. I show our hand expecting to chop, and he shows pocket aces.
Chopping? Ace? Oh. You bet I fold earlier. Thank you.
Thank you.
2 hands later, we've got king-10 offsuit in the cutoff. I decided to limp in here, not something I usually do, but just to kind of gauge how the table reacts. The small blind raises to 50, and the big blind folds. I call to defend in position, and we're heads up to a flop. It comes down 9-7-5 with 2 spades. This is definitely a flop that's better for our limping range than it is for our opponent's raising range. When he checks to us, I put out a bet of 60. After about 20 seconds, we get called, and the turn brings another low card that favors us, the 4 of spades. Our opponent checks again, and I keep the pressure on, making it $110. He snap folds, and we take it down. 4 hands later, we've got queen-9 offsuit in the big blind. It folds to the small blind who completes, and I check our option. We just go ahead and flop the nuts as it comes down 2 queens and a 9. Our opponent leads for $10, and I just call so as to not scare him off. The turn brings the ace of spades. He checks to us, and I put out a small bet of $20. He makes the call, and we're off to the river. We see the 8 of diamonds, and our opponent checks again. I make it $50, and he check raises, making it $180. Now, I'm going to pause here for a second and share my thought process on the turn. When I saw the ace come out, I got in my head about the idea that he might have limped ace-queen. I've run into this at some 1-2 games in Texas where people will try to get trappy with hands like this, blind versus blind, and after the check raise on the river, I talked myself into thinking that my turn thought process might actually have been right, and that he's been trapping us from the get-go.
If you got ace-queen, I gotta pay. I flopped the nuts. Thanks.
He ends up showing 5-2 suited in spades for the turn flush. After thinking about this hand and discussing it with my friend, I realized that this should be a hand where we're just going to go broke if we're behind. We should definitely be 3-betting this river and be willing to get it in here. We flopped the nuts, we've got the third nuts on the river, and so we're really only losing to pocket aces and ace-queen at this point. Realistically though, we probably only missed out on $200 or $300 at most, as it's going to be hard for a baby flush to call too big of a 3-bet on the river, so I'm not crying over spilled milk here. But I do think we should be going for that value next time we're in a similar scenario. 15 minutes later, there's a raise to $30, and we've got a premium at position on the button with king-queen suited. I 3-bet to $110, and it's enough to take it down. This is not a big pot, but I like to include these hands sometimes to demonstrate the power of aggression, along with the fact that winning at poker doesn't always have to be big fancy plays or crazy reads. Just a couple hands later, we've got ace-8 offsuit in the hijack. Action folds to us, and I raise to 30. Just the big blind calls, so we're heads up. The flop comes down jack 10-9 with 2 hearts, so we've got a gut shot. That being said, it's still a better flop for our opponent's range more often than not. For that reason, when our opponent checks to us, I check this one back. The turn's a brick with the 5 of clubs, and our opponent leads for $40. Our ace high could still be good here, plus we've got the straight draw, so I go ahead and make the call. The river smashes our pre-flop raising range when it brings the king of spades. And since we've got all the hands that should hit this river hard, I put out a bet of $100. Our opponent mucks as soon as our chips go in, and we take down another one. We've officially doubled up our buy-in at this point. 4 hands later, we've got ace-4 suited on the button. It folds to the hijack who raises to 30, and I call in position. Both blinds fold, so we're heads up to the flop. And it comes down 2 10s and an 8 with 2 spades on board. Our opponent leads small for $20 here, and our ace high could definitely still be good, so we're definitely going to continue at this point and put in the chips to call. The turn is the jack of spades, so both the flush and some straight draws come in, and some drawing hands pair up on this card as well. Our opponent checks to us, and we can definitely represent any one of those hands here. I put out a bet of $40, and it's enough to get a fold. None of these pots we've been winning the past few hands are particularly big, but sometimes small risk, small reward can add up to a lot when repeated a few times in these favorable spots. 2 hands later, we've got ace-queen suited in the hijack. There's a raise to $30, and we've got a premium in position. I make another straightforward 3-bet to $110. Once again, we take it down, and we just keep building up the stack bit by bit. That is, until the next super interesting hand, which immediately follows this ace-queen hand we just played. Action folds to us, and we look down at pocket 5s in the +2 position. I make it $30, and the button calls, and the small blind joins along as well. We're 3 ways to the flop, and it's a pretty interesting flop as it comes down 7-6-3 rainbow, giving us third pair now with a gut shot. The small blind checks, and I c-bet for 60. The button folds, and the small blind calls, so we're heads up now. The turn brings an offsuit 8, completing the rainbow. This is not a great card for our hand. If we were somehow ahead on the flop, our opponent could easily have paired up now if he was drawing to the top end of the straight. When he checks to us, I'm happy to take the free card and check back. And do we get a miracle of a river as we see the 4 of clubs fall, giving us our straight. And even better, our opponent now leads into us for $80. We're realistically only losing to 10-9 here, and there's not any reason to be afraid of that holding. I end up making a pretty strong raise to $350, hoping for a call. After about 30 seconds, our opponent pushes all in. It's another $450 for us to call, and I immediately throw in a chip, expecting to be ahead.
I call. I got straight.
With this pot, we've officially tripled up since sitting down. I've gotten comments on vlogs in the past about how we could have our opponent show his cards first here since he is the one who pushed all in, and that's technically true. But with the way the hand played out, I'm pretty confident we've essentially got the nuts here, and I feel like it'd be a slow roll not to flip them up right away. You might say we're missing out on information that we paid for, but we can make a pretty safe assumption about our opponent's hand at this point. He probably thinks we've got an overpair given the action, and he would need either 2 pair or a set on this board to beat us. Seeing his 2 specific cards that paired up on this board doesn't really change how we play against him in future hands. Ultimately, I think there's more value in keeping people happy, under the circumstances, and keeping the game moving. 15 minutes later, we've got our last interesting hand of the night. We've got ace-queen offsuit under the gun. I make it $30, we get 2 calls, and the 3 of us head to the flop. And it's definitely a good one as it comes down 4-3 queen rainbow, giving us top pair, top kicker. I c-bet for $50 and we just get one caller, so we're heads up now. The turn makes things even better for us as it brings the ace of clubs. We've got top 2 now, so we're pretty confident with our hand, but unfortunately this is probably a scare card for our opponent as well. I go with a check out of position for deception and also to give him a chance to take a stab at the pot if he's willing. He doesn't go for it, unfortunately, so we get a free river in the form of the king of spades. We're really only losing to ace-king and jack-10 now, neither of which our opponent should have given the action. Ace-king probably would have re-raised pre-flop, and jack-10 had no reason to stick around after our c-bet on the flop. I lead out on the smaller side, hoping for a little more value, making it $80. Unfortunately, our hand is just too strong, our opponent folds, but we scoop one last pot for the night. Well, if that wasn't just the most awesome session that we've had. Bought in for 1K, played for an hour and 40 minutes, and cashed out for a little over 3.3K. So, freaking awesome. I mean, we ran like the sun during that session, not gonna lie. Getting it in early with aces versus kings and getting a full double. The pocket fives hand where we just rivered the straight. Obviously it wasn't the nuts, but you know, we're only losing to 8-9 realistically on that board, and I don't think he called the flop with a gutter ball, and if he did, so be it. So to hit that, and not only hit it, but you know, I was raising, made a big raise, expecting, like hoping to get a bluff catch call, and he pushes all in with, I'm assuming he either had a set or 2 pair, and he put me on an overpair. Is kind of the reason I made a big bet. Like I was trying to rep an overpair that was just bluffing to win, and he re-raised, so I don't know what he had. I could have let him show first since he's the one that shoved, but I felt like we had the nuts and I didn't want to slow roll, so I showed my hand. Guy 2 seats to my left was upset that I didn't make the guy show, but I'm not a slow roller. When I feel like I got it, I'm going to show. I don't care if people get information that they shouldn't get. It's just kind of the way I play. But anyway, we had that, and then we had the queen 9 hand where we flopped the nuts. I think I misplayed that one. I think I should have raised the river after he check raised. I'm really only losing to aces and ace queen, but I got into my own head on the turn there where I was like, shit, he's like, I kind of give a lot more credit at the 5-10 game, I think, thinking, you know, limped pot, the guy's trying to trap me, but I really didn't have any reason at that point. I don't think there's any reason to give credit for that kind of hand, and yeah, I don't know, I gave him a little bit more credit than I should have, so I think lost some value there. Granted, if I had 3-bet, I think there are hands that are worse that don't call there. I guess a flush is probably one of the only hands that we do maybe get value from that we're ahead of there versus hands that beat us. So I don't know, curious what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. Otherwise, yeah, happy with the session overall. It was a quick one. Gonna maybe play the WSOP online tonight for one of the ring events, the circuit events, we'll see. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Hit the like and subscribe button, it really helps the channel out. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next one. Take care, guys.